I never thought my silence could make so much noise. But a whisper was enough. A letter I did not write. A rumor that someone dropped as a person who throws a spark in a dry forest. The prince of him. Or Ested is interested in Navier. That's what they said. And in a matter of days, the echo reached the corridors, coldness of the palace that was once my prison. I wasn't there to see it, but I can imagine it. The sober face. The glass of wine trembling between his fingers. Because the same man who replaced me with a lover could not bear that I no longer expected him to. The problem was never that I left. The problem was that I got up when the empire of this one knew the truth did not react with understanding. Reacted with strategy. Because for them, a free woman is not a strong woman, is a threat. And if that woman was empress, then its sight wrapped in. She must have remained silent. She should have maintained her dignity. She should have waited. That's what they said. But what actually they meant was she must have remained docile. In Greek, I was not, if any. You were tried for healing without asking permission. Write in the comments. My freedom needs no explanation. Like us, if you have ever chosen to stay instead of being in ruins, and stay here because the empire of this one has just woken up and will not do it with flowers, will do so with love. Sobieso did not need to say anything in public. He knew how to play in the shadows. And when power feels humiliated, it does not raise its voice. Raises armies of rumors. Navier sold west. His divorce was an excuse to move up. No one ever loved her. No one only tolerated her. Words that bleed more than swords. Lies disguised as court analysis whispers. Thrown at banquet parties. In board sessions, the truth did not care. What they wanted was to shape my story. Without me and me so far away, I was beginning to feel the cold of an empire. That was no longer mine. But that he was still trying to possess me one night. Arrived an unsigned letter without stamps. Just a line written with contained anger. May your new prince give you what you never were. Able to preserve, I did not cry. I did not scream, but I held between my fingers with the strength of someone who holds an invisible sword. Because I understood that it was not enough to have left, had to claim it. Narrative of my story, and it would not be easy for those who fear. Women who stand up. They do everything to fold them, but I had already broken them. And the fragments that remained were more sharp people who before, if they have ever attempted, rewrite your story to make it look like guilt. Here's comment. I also recovered my voice. Like us, if you know that silence is not always, weakness is sometimes the deepest cutting edge. Subscribe now. Because I won't tell you how I defended myself. I will show you how I became a threat. I did not answer the letter. I did not send I did not summon scandals. I answered in the only way I really thought. To power by being happy? That day, I ordered, open the doors of the royal garden in the west, invited children's artists, women who had never. I stepped on a palace and walked among them. Not as a figure, but as a human being. I was asked, are you the Empress of the East? And I answered, no. I am the woman who survived the East. Portraits were published that day. Indra and I chatting in the shadow of a pergola. I laughed free luminous in that image. That simple image was more provocative than 1,000 speeches. Because tyrants are not afraid. To weapons they fear, two nurses who no longer need their permission. In less than a week, the East convened an emergency council on the matter. My public happiness, you can believe it, my joy was a threat. My freedom, an offering, and I understood that when a woman blew away from the one who turned it off, the garden becomes a witness and also a warning. If your smile was ever your revenge, write in the comments. My joy is my power. Like us, if you think dignity doesn't need it, other people's approval, and stay because what you need. Made after was not a letter. It was a political bomb. The bomb was not an army. Was much more calculated and cruel. Sobieso issued an imperial decree, a public review of all documents, decisions and signatures that I had made as empress, an audit, a trial disguised as legality, a clear attempt to erase my legacy that day. I stayed still, not out of fear, but by strategy, because I understood that they did not want to find mistakes. They wanted to make them. They wanted to show the world that I had been in, that my reign, it was an illusion that without him I was nothing. But they were wrong. Every decision I made, every decree I signed, each act was done with precision, with justice, with strength. My mistake was not to govern. My mistake was believing that someone else would tell my story with honesty. So I prepared myself, not with sweet words, but with evidence. with witnesses, with facts, and above all, with memory because they wanted legal war. We're going to meet a empress who not only wore crowns, also knows how to soften arguments such as swords. If you have ever tried to delete what you have achieved, please comment. My story is not erased. Like us if you know that the past, it's no shame when you wrote it with dignity. And subscribe now, because in the West we'll take sides, and when a new empire defends to a woman, the old man begins to tremble. The message came one silent morning. A messenger from the West crossed the threshold from the palace and placed on my desk one document, an official communiqué signed by Einstein. I read it only once, and I felt like the cold I had left behind. The East was beginning to melt in my snow. Was a public statement, and said the Empire of the West recognizes the value of the correctness and rectitude of each decision taken by Navier during his reign, and in the face of any attempt at defamation, this empire recognizes it as an ally and as the legitimate voice of justice in history. I didn't ask for that defense, I didn't wait for it, but when it came, I understood that there was something more powerful than revenge. Validation without conditions, not from a man, but of a nation, and there I knew that while the East tried to make me disappear, the West was willing to see me in full. That day, many in the East began to doubt. Not all were blind. Not all were loyal to the lying power. Some remembered how I had defended them in doctors in crisis, and wars in the crack began not by swords, but for memories that they could not delete. If someone ever dies in your name, when you were tired of explaining, write in the comments, "Thank you for defending my truth." Like us if you know that their Aries that are not begged are sustained. And stay because Sabjusu is going to make a mistake. The most serious of everyone underestimated my rebirth. Sober could not withstand the blow. It wasn't just an accident supporting me. It was the idea, the nightmare, that I no longer needed it to shine. His response was desperate. A missive sent to all the allied kingdoms of the East, warning me to shift the was a dangerous influence for the balance of dangerous power. That's how I get off, not because I carry weapons, but for carrying criteria, voice and presence. But what he did not see, what he did not understand, it was already late for the cuts. Foreigners did not respond as he expected. Some remained silent. Others instead began to send private letters. Letters addressed to me, consultations, invitations. Interest no longer as dethroned empress, but as a key figure in political chess, and thus, without intending to do so, I became a symbol. Not because for it, but because the fire they tried to put out, irony burned stronger. It was useless. I knew he wanted to delete me, and in his attempt, he turned me into a legend. If anyone ever tried, silence you and only got more people to will hear your voice. Write in the comments. I was born to burn, not to resist. Like us, if you have ever become an example, without intending to, and don't leave, because you will know what Einri's reaction was to this chaos, and you will understand that there are kingdoms that are not only merged with laws, but with loyalties forged in the midst of storms. Einri did not say much. He was never of empty words. But when the scandal grew like a storm, when the miraculous letters of this one crossed the heavens like flies, he looked at me, and he just said, "You want me to do it for you or with you?" That phrase broke me. Because he was not a savior, he was an equal, an ally, and I used to fighting alone. I did not know how to receive so much loyalty without conditions, but I did. We sat together, we wrote answers. We plan alliances, not to counterattack, but to create a new center of power, one where a woman's voice was no exception, but a structure. In less than 1 week, the West signed pacts with 3 territories, neutral, all under the principle of recognition and equity. My name was in every agreement, and for the first time, was not just a title, but a signature that weighed like a crown. If someone ever offered you support, without trying to control you comments, "Thank you for walking with me, not in front of me like me," if you know there is power in building not only an and don't leave, because in this chapter you go to understand how a simple love decision could ignite the fury of an entire empire. It was not a secret. Era and I already shared power and decisions, affection, but the world did not know yet what we were about to do. And a night under the pale moonlight, with the fountains of the palace whispering in calm, he took my hand and bluntly, without jewels or witnesses, it came out. "You want to marry me officially in front of the world?" My heart stopped. Not by surprise, but because at that moment I understood the weight of that decision. It wasn't just a yes, it was a declaration of independence, a political act, an affront directly to those who said that I would be nothing without him, and I smiled and said yes. But not as a symbol, as a sovereign a day. Next, the news crossed the continents. Like lightning, Eladrovi Shipping Company. The Empress, divorced woman to marry Western Emperor. And not by obligation, not out of scandal, but by decision. He was modest, sober. I don't understand. But his silence was more deafening than a cry. Because he understood something he never thought possible, that I had not only survived his betrayal, had an empire within me. If you ever converted your pain in a new beginning, comments, I was never the same again. I became stronger again. Like us, if you know that self is also celebrated with new crowns. And subscribe, because in Chapter 10, I will show you how the roar who came after was not of love. It was wartime.